Hey there guys, how are you? Welcome back to another awesome video, and it's time for another top 10 video. Today's top 10 video is going to be the top 10 Marvel post-credit scenes. So, since this is basically, since Far From Home, that's kind of been, and since Endgame and Far From Home are kind of the closing of the MCU right now, well, in terms of their saga, in terms of the movies right now, and we won't be seeing another Marvel movie for another year or two, give or take, something like that. So I figured, I know I said I'd talk about DC stuff, but let's talk about some Marvel stuff, and let's kind of reflect a little bit on the MCU so far before the next phase happens, before Phase 4 happens. So I'm going to have this sort of like series of like Marvel videos, Marvel-related videos, MCU-related videos pertaining to basically reflecting back on the MCU and what has come so far, and maybe things to expect, maybe not, whatever the case is. So this is going to be one of these videos. So plain and simple, let's cover the post-credit scenes, the end credit scenes, stuff like that. So with this list, we're going to be looking at the Marvel post-credit scenes, whether it's MCU movies, non-MCU movies, the ones that I think were the most the most like excited, the most anticipated, the ones that got you excited for the next movie, the ones that teased characters, the ones that teased other things, stuff like that, etc., etc., etc. So, if you haven't seen any of these movies whatsoever, if you haven't seen a Marvel movie, whether a Marvel movie or an MCU movie, obviously their thing is that they do post-credit scenes. So during the credits, they'll have a scene, and then they'll do something afterwards as well. So if you haven't seen really a lot of Marvel movies, I advise pausing this video, go check out maybe a couple at least, and then come back here. So I'm going to give you guys a big, huge spoiler warning in case of anything whatsoever. So without further ado, let's just get right into it and everything. So at number 10, we have Howard the Duck from Guardians of the Galaxy. So not the most complex post-credit scene, but very simple but funny. And sometimes the little simple things are the very most funniest things. In this case, that is what this post-credit scene sort of means. So we see the collector. His whole collection has been destroyed. Half his stuff is gone. Half his shit is basically lost and missing. You have Cosmo, that space dog, that astronaut Russian dog that's there. So that's another Easter egg. But the biggest eye like seer, the biggest obvious one you see is a duck, Howard the Duck to be specific, sitting there, just sitting in his cage, looking at the collector, like beat up, bat shit and everything, and he's just like, and he sees Cosmo licking him, and he's like, "Why you letting him lick him for? That's gross. Have a dog lick your face." Just simple, funny, honestly, and those little things are the most funniest sometimes, if done right. And something like, so a character like this really works, especially since it's voiced by Seth Green. That makes it even more funnier. And making it more the idea of like seeing this character cameo in more Guardians movies, more MCU films. Maybe we can have a Seth Green like How the Duck remake, like MCU film sort of thing. So that kind of was really funny. Number 9, Matt Gargan from Spider-Man Homecoming. So we see Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture, in prison. But he's getting out of prison right now because his family basically said, look, he's not a bad guy. He did some things, but he's not a bad guy. Basically, that like all sorts of charges and all sorts of technicalities in terms of like, hey, we're able to basically kick you out and basically say you're free to go without a trial, without anything like that, stuff like that, yada yada. So we come across Matt Gargan. So obviously we saw this guy before this credit scene, but what really makes things interesting is the conversation between Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture, played by Michael Keaton, and Matt Gargan here. And the fact that he's like, so people say that his identity is exposed and all these other things and whatnot. So you want to know who he is, right? And then Vulture keeps that as a secret, which is kind of cool. But it's just this cool conversation between two different Spider-Man villains that makes it intense. So the idea of these two possibly forming the Sinister Six, because Gargan does say, hey, I know some people that would love to kill Spider-Man, I want to crush him for this and stuff like that, and you want him too, so why don't we team up? And this makes it even more exciting for me because not only does this guy become Scorpion later down the line, because Matt Gargan being Scorpion, the Marvel Comics, and Scorpion being one of my favorite Spider-Man villains, but it's played by Michael Mando. It's freaking Voss Montenegro from Far Cry playing Scorpion. That sounds pretty genius and pretty good casting right there. So that gets me a little excited for the idea of like maybe we'll see him again somewhere, maybe somewhere in the MCU. Hopefully, if we can have this, we can finally patch this up with Spider-Man and Sony and MCU and stuff. So here's hope for seeing Scorpion somewhere down the line. Here's hope for maybe there's a possibility of the Sinister Six. Number 8 is Cletus Cassidy, Venom. So Venom kind of have diverse opinions. Some people have said it's good, some people have said it's bad, some say it's in the middle. I say it's okay. But one thing that really makes me, one thing I really love about Venom, is its credit scene, because it teases. Not only does it tease a Venom sequel, but it teases a perfect villain for a Venom sequel, which is Cletus Cassidy, played by Woody Harrelson, who will in the comics eventually becomes Carnage, the second symbiotic villain that Spider-Man comes across. The sort of like the first what do you want to call it, I guess, spawn of Venom, of the Venom symbiote. There's a whole technicality sort of thing and weird thing with that. With the symbiote, it's able to reproduce, so therefore we have a symbiote called Carnage. So Cletus Cassidy being interviewed by Eddie Brock, building tension, and the idea that Cassidy goes, there's going to be some carnage once I get out of this here, you know? So that gets me excited, and I love the fact that they saved Carnage for the sequel. Just like what they did with the Joker in the Dark Knight trilogy, save the better villain for the sequel. You don't want to bring your best villain to the first movie. It would have benefited because, let's face it, Carnage is a better villain than Riot. So, although that's the case, however, I think it's going to be more satisfying to have have Carnage show up in the sequel, and it's going to be a better movie. If you didn't like Venom, you're definitely going to love Venom 2. Trust me. Number 7, The Age of Miracles. The Age of Miracles. Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Now, this wasn't as big of a deal. That is, I know this credit scene's not as big of a deal as it was like it is now. But back in when Winter Soldier came out, this was probably the most like anticipated thing for me. Was the idea that, and this was something I never would have thought of, is the idea that Hydra is now kind of like has now risen from the ashes. It's kind of rising from underground and everything. So now that it's risen from underground, it's got all sorts of like crazy like stuff hidden that SHIELD doesn't have, that like we don't have. The Americans, us SHIELD people, our heroes, SHIELD, us Americans, stuff like that the Germans, the Nazis, Hydra has found. So they have the Tesseract still. Wait, not the Tesseract. They have Loki. So we see one of the new heads of Hydra, Baron von Strucker, now has Loki's scepter, who, spoilers, his scepter is that little blue gem is obviously an Infinity Stone. So if you didn't know, so yeah. But not only that, but this got me interested because then all of a sudden you see two people in prison cells, and those two people wind up being Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, teasing the idea of what they were trying to set up with Age of Ultron. But hopefully this could have a bigger meaning, because maybe looking back on this post-credit scene, we could see more X-Men characters. And luckily Disney has Fox, so we can have the X-Men. But this was really cool because of how the way this was set up and the way it's worded. The writing for this is really cool for a credit scene. The whole Age of Miracles, there's nothing more horrifying than a miracle. And you see that smash by Scarlet Witch with her cubes and everything, and Quicksilver running back and forth through his cell, trying to control his speed, just going, wah. So, stuff like that. But this was really cool. It gave us Quicksilver, gave us Scarlet Witch, and that's all I can really say. And it was really cool. Maybe there's a possibility that we'll see Quicksilver like through the What If Disney Plus series or the Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. But I really love what they've done with Scarlet Witch, and I can't wait to see more. Number 6, 1 down, 5 to go. This one was a bigger deal for me. At first, I remember not realizing it, but looking back, I was like, oh my gosh, how like not convenient, but what are the odds? So this is at the end of Thor: The Dark World. I know it's not the best received Marvel movie and MCU movie, but this was really a cool credit scene for me. And it didn't redeem the movie for me, but honestly, I still love this credit scene no matter what. So, with that being said, you have two Asgardians. They were after retrieving the ether, that weird like basically the reality stone, that weird like liquid stuff that that dark elf Malekith used. So they basically decide, okay, we have this Infinity Stone, and we have another Infinity Stone. That's the Tesseract, the Cosmic Cube. So we can't have two Infinity Stones touch each other because if that happens, boom, basically kablooey. If anything happens, if two Infinity Stones hit each other, so the impact would be quite mass hysteria in a way. So with that being said, they decided, you know what, we're gonna give this to a weirdo named the Collector. He's an elder of the universe, so that kind of builds up a bigger, like expanded, like cosmic universe because the Collector being sort of like a god, not really a god, but he's kind of like one of these beings that basically lives forever. Like he can't die. Like he doesn't have really that much power to him, especially how they established him in the MCU. But he's just like these normal, like just like basically dude that just can't die, sort of thing. There's more to like he's able to do more stuff in the comics, but how he's set up in the MCU, he's kind of just like doesn't do that much and kind of more. It's more the performance than the abilities and the effects he has. But I love how he presents himself. The performance by Benicio del Toro. I love this character because I love how Del Toro plays this character. And it's very funny, but very prestige-like for me. So like highbrow meets lowbrow sort of performance. It's funny, it's goofy a little bit, but it also feels like very like he's trying to be like very like sophisticated. I'm like an important character a little bit. And when he says the phrase "one down, five to go" after the Asgardians leave, because they basically give him the ether and stuff like that, it really helps a lot.